about the challenge and to give you an example of what's been working for me and the reason why I actually uploaded this is I just wanted to share this. So one of the first things that was important for me is to have very good posture, because if you actually I did this in the mornings. For me personally, that worked well, but sometimes in the afternoons, just before lunchtime especially, yeah, there's this change inside of us, and I think a couple of times I did it, just a quick version. But I mean, it is quick anyway. It doesn't take a long time, so obviously it's going to take a lot longer explaining the whole process to you. But if you do it on your own, it should take about 10 minutes or maximum 15 minutes, shouldn't take more. So for me, a good posture to be in is just to be seated. I like sitting on my knees because it's a very short exercise. You can sit on a couch, you can sit cross-legged, you can whatever, it doesn't matter. You can stand. Stand is great. And just be in a very upright posture. So just make sure that you arching your back just a little bit. That little bend that's in the lower back is important, and that helps with the vacuums as well. So the first thing was I asked you guys to get some pictures, your happiness pictures. So the one that I actually have is the one with a guy walking the snow. So I'm going to share this one because it's the point of it being happy pictures is because we're trying to recall moments and events that was very important to us and that made us feel a certain way. So we're calling that back to us, and using that experience, because every single human has like a mental map, an emotional map, and the only way that we can actually keep up that emotional and mental high, if you can call it that, is if we keep reliving these moments. So here's the picture I'm going to show you. There you go. Wait, it went away. So anyway, you know the picture. I'm just going to bring it up because the thing is, I like to have it in front of me. If you think about it, yeah, fair enough. You can do it that way. It's not the same. It's not the same. Just try it out. I would really, if you want to do this, try it out. And it's a huge change. So just to show you again, the picture, the guy walking in the snow. It is snowing. That's why there's like a actual spot on the camera. That was my phone. And the cow's walking behind him. Right. Here goes, the story and the sharing. Right, as I explained as well, the sharing is because when we tell the story, and it's happened to me so many times, I've told this story several times too. Some of you might know it. And this story is when I was traveling a couple of years ago. I think it was 2017. Yes, 2017. I was traveling on my own. I took a road trip. And to Andorra, yeah. That wasn't actually the plan to stay that long in Andorra. It was I had a general plan, but it wasn't like fixed. No specific dates or whatever. I had 15 days. I took holiday and I just knew, look, I need to go somewhere. I need to explore a little bit. So I hired a van. Just a tiny one, no, nothing big. It wasn't like even. It was one of these, you know, the Citroen and Peugeot van that looks like a car. You know, one of those teeny tiny little things. Right. So I hired one of those things and I set it up in the back to sleep in the van, it wasn't an easy task. It was quite difficult actually. And I started from Barcelona. I flew to Barcelona, and from Barcelona, another detail, it was November. It was cold. In Spain, the further north you go, the colder it gets. It was beginning of November, so I didn't expect it to be that cold, but I did prepare. But you know, even if you try to prepare yourself, if you've never been in a situation, then you're just not going to be well enough prepared. You're just not going to know. That's one of the things I learned on this trip. Valuable lesson. That, you know, go with the flow kind of thing. It's pretty important as well. So anyway, I drove from Barcelona across Girona and ended up in South France. I wanted to go to South France. That was one of my objectives. And one of my aunts, her friend, has a house in Bagneres de Luchon. And I went to go and check it out. It's a very pretty place. And that's why I went there. Ended up making friends, stayed with them, which was a blessing because it was really cold. It was so cold. Anyway, so from there I was like, okay, just a couple of days is good enough. And then I went to Andorra, and that's where I took this picture because it was the first time in my life I drove in snow. I had no chains on the wheel. I asked and nobody said. I did think of it because I thought, you know, it might snow in Andorra. It's so famous for snow and stuff. So I asked and everybody was like, no, it's too early. It's not going to snow yet. But by the time I got there and I spoke to the locals and they were like, yeah, no, it's actually late. It's supposed to start snowing. The day I arrived, it wasn't snowing yet. The next morning I woke up and the snowflakes, I've never seen such big snowflakes in my whole entire life. It was insane. I mean, I'm not used to snow. I don't know these white fluffy stuff. It's very pretty, but it's just not, I just don't know. And I kind of, people started asking me, you know, you okay? You're sleeping in this normal van? And they started giving me more blankets. I remember one morning, so I would wake up like every morning about 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, and I'd switch on the car because it was just too cold to sleep. I mean, I had so many blankets underneath on top. That was pretty awesome actually. It wasn't cold. I wasn't afraid. It wasn't like as if I was in danger. I wasn't in you know, outside in nature or whatever. I was in a campsite, so it's being pretty, you know, clever about some things. But still, I didn't mind being cold because there's many ways that you can warm up your body, and the breathing exercises I do actually protects your immune system and helps. So lots of benefits that it has in there. And I didn't even know that at that time yet. That's where everything just started out. And one of the things I remember was, okay, so now you're probably thinking, so where did you shower? Yeah, I had two ways. One was I would shower at campsites. So I'd be moving from one campsite to another campsite. But there was, most of the times, I didn't sleep in campsites. I would literally have buy water, like those 5 liter and 8 liter bottles of water, and I'd have that with me, and I would go for a run because I was running pretty strong back then. I go for a run like about 8 kilometers, 7 kilometers, so that I could do it every day. And then I would, in a bikini, strip down in my bikini at the back of the car and have a shower. and that's how I invented a portable shower for myself in winter. And if you're thinking, oh no, well, you know, maybe that was just a little bit cold. It was minus 12 degrees one morning. Most of the time it was like minus 6, minus 7. I remember taking a photograph of my dad. But that was one of the best holidays I've ever had in my entire life, just because I just thought, you know, I want to go and I want to just whatever, go with the flow and see how things work out. I've never done it. It's scary. It's scary to do something and you don't know what it will be like. You really don't know. And you put yourself in that situation and you're having so much fun. And that's why I did it. I was like, I need to challenge myself and be out in circumstances that I don't know and see how I react. Don't be silly, I wasn't going to jump off a cliff and see if I can fly. But yeah, sensibly stupid, if you could say it like that. But it was brilliant. I mean, you get to know certain parts of yourself, and that's why I did it. And that's why, for me, it was one of the happiest trips I've ever done. And this guy walking in the snow, nobody was behind the cows. The cows were actually following him because I asked why was that happening, and they would move the cows from one shelter because it gets too cold, and take them to another shelter so that the cows are actually better looked after. And I thought, wow, that's really beautiful. They actually take into account the cow's welfare, and they would literally guide the cows and be in front. And I was like, when do we do that for ourselves? When do we do that for our children? When do we do that for our friends, that we're just there, being an example and saying, it's okay, I'll take you to a better place, just come along, tag along. I think that's pretty amazing, and that's why I took the picture. I was like, oh my god, this is like a magical moment. So there's my story of my happy and moment that gave me a lot of confidence to believe in myself. I put myself in a pretty eccentric kind of moment and 2 weeks, and I got out of it with a lot more confidence than I had before. I believed in myself so much more. Okay, now by reliving that moment, there's a couple of things I remembered that I didn't remember before. You guys that knows the story, you probably heard a couple of more details that I didn't tell before. And that's really what it is about. So I can actually hear that snow in my mind thinking back. The mind is a very powerful thing, and that's why we need to talk about it. We need to share it. We need to write it out. We need to relive it. Because I remember that first day when I woke up and I opened the van and I put my feet on the ground, that crunch, crunch, and that feeling under my shoe. And I remember I went crunch, crunch again, and I moved forward. I was walking all around the car going crunch, 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 because I never knew snow like that. It was, for me, it was pretty amazing. Yeah. So after reliving it, I'm a little bit, some tears in my eyes. Okay, so from reliving this moment, so I'm going to show you, I have my top down there, so you can see what the vacuum is actually like. Now, I'm going to show you the first example, where you actually use a method that, for you guys that has never done, you don't know if you can do a vacuum, or maybe it's too hard for you to do a vacuum in the beginning. I recommend this method. So I'm going to show you once. I'm going to explain to you first how to do it, obviously. So what you do is you breathe in very slowly, very deep, and then you breathe out with an open mouth. So just relax your jaw. We're not forcing anything. We're just, just taking in all of that sensations, the sounds, even remembering the smells, anything that you remember of that happy picture of yours. Just go through that. So it's breathing in very deeply, very slowly, breathing out ever so slowly, even slower than breathing in. And when you feel okay, not pushing out the air, it's just flowing out, and then close off the airways. And the way that I do it is I close my mouth and I pinch my nose, and then do like a false inspiration, like you're trying to suck in, basically. Okay, so let's go for one. I let go of my nose and then I breathe in. And what I do while I'm actually doing, this is what you call a vacuum. What I do while I'm doing this vacuum is I would actually go through those moments, go through those sensations, and I'd give it a color to add on to it. Okay, so if that's too much for you, just do the vacuum, because that kind of locks it in. It brings it into the emotional part, which is the diaphragm. Okay, if you can do a vacuum and you're familiar with it, I would say do it without your hands. Just have your hands showing up towards yourself, because it's opening up your shoulders. If we do it this way, then it's a little bit different for the shoulders. So put your hands up on top of your legs, sit nice and tall, shoulders just relax. I'm not pushing them anywhere, and just breathe in and think of it. You can look at the picture. And one more time, 3 times. And that is basically it. So there's not much to it. I'm very looking forward to hearing your stories. And if you don't want to go in a video, you're just shy about it, don't worry about it. Just voice record and load it up in the group, or write it out. Write the story, but go through the motions, relive that story, and find why it made you so happy. I think that's pretty powerful to go through it. And yeah, can't wait for it. And let me know what your emotions is, and lock into that happiness. Make it happen a little bit more. Bye, guys. Mwah.